Hey everyone, I'm glad you're taking a few minutes to be here today. I want to start with something that doesn't sound dramatic at first, but ends up affecting people much more than they expect. As we move closer to the end of the year, there are a few small decisions and simple checks tied to Social Security and Medicare that quietly decide how smooth the next 12 months will feel. Most people don't think about them, and nobody sends reminders for them. But once January arrives, whatever's already locked in tends to stay that way for a while. So today, I want to walk you through a few things worth reviewing before the calendar turns. Nothing complicated, nothing overwhelming, just the things that tend to cause problems later when they're overlooked now. And toward the end, I'll cover one area that almost everyone assumes is already taken care of, even though it's one of the most common sources of delays and surprises. So stay with me. Before we begin, let me ask you something simple. What part of Social Security or Medicare has felt the most confusing or frustrating to you this year? It could be letters, deductions, payment changes, or just not knowing who to call. Leave that in the comments. A lot of people reading will relate more than you realize. All right, let's get into it. As the year winds down, it's useful to step back and look at the foundation of your benefits, not just the amount you receive, because Social Security works on records, assumptions, and defaults, and if those defaults are off, the system doesn't always correct itself automatically. The first thing worth your time before year end is checking your Social Security earnings history. Your monthly benefit is calculated using your highest 35 years of earnings. That's not just recent work, it's your entire working life. And even though most earnings are reported correctly, mistakes do happen. Employers close, records go missing, numbers get reported incorrectly. When that happens, there usually isn't an alert, there isn't a warning. The system just uses what it sees. That's why it's important to log into your My Social Security account and review your earnings year by year. Take your time with it. Compare what's listed to what you remember earning. If you see a year marked 0 despite having worked, or if an amount looks unusually low, that's worth following up on. Correcting errors is possible, but it's much easier to do when they're caught early. Once benefits are already being paid, changes can take longer and require more documentation. If you receive disability benefits, this review matters even more. Work activity, even limited or temporary work, needs to be reported accurately. When earnings aren't reported properly, overpayments can occur, and those often don't appear until much later when repayment is requested. Catching issues now helps avoid that situation entirely. Another area people often overlook until it becomes a problem is tax withholding. Depending on your total income, Social Security benefits can be subject to federal income tax. Many people don't realize this until they file their return and see a balance due. That surprise can usually be avoided. If you'd rather spread out what's owed instead of paying it all at once, you can choose to have federal taxes withheld directly from your Social Security payment. This is optional, but for many people, it makes income more predictable and easier to manage. It's also important to stay aware of changes that affect taxable income more broadly. Recent tax adjustments for seniors have changed how much income is shielded from taxes, which doesn't increase Social Security payments, but can reduce the share that's taxed. These types of changes don't help unless people factor them into their planning. Next, let's talk about direct deposit. This one seems obvious, but year-end is when banking changes tend to cause the most disruptions. If your bank account changed this year, or your bank merged or updated routing information, it's worth confirming that Social Security has the correct details on file. When a payment is sent to the wrong account, it doesn't always come back quickly. Reissuing payments can take time, and that delay often lands right in January, when people are already juggling higher expenses. Now let's move into Medicare, because the end of the year is when a lot of changes quietly take effect. By this point, Medicare open enrollment has ended. That means your coverage for the new year is mostly set. If you stayed with your existing plan, that coverage will continue into January. Missing the enrollment deadline doesn't mean you've failed or done something wrong. It just means your options are different moving forward. Certain changes are still possible during special enrollment periods, such as when moving or losing other coverage. There are also limited adjustment periods for some Medicare Advantage plans. What's important now is understanding the coverage you'll be using. That includes which doctors are in network, how prescriptions are covered, and what rules apply to services that require prior authorization. Many people experience frustration simply because they discover these details only when they need care. Another adjustment many people notice at the start of the year is the Medicare Part B premium. For most beneficiaries, this premium is automatically deducted from Social Security payments. When the premium increases, it can make a Social Security deposit appear smaller, even if benefits technically increased. This is one of the most common reasons people feel confused in January. They expect to see a higher payment, but instead see little or no change. Understanding how these deductions work ahead of time makes that adjustment much easier. Even though enrollment is closed, assistance programs remain available throughout the year. Programs that help with premiums or prescription costs can still be applied for, and eligibility sometimes changes after cost of living adjustments take effect. Speaking of COLA, it's helpful to think of it in context. Cost of living adjustments are meant to help benefits keep pace with inflation, but they don't exist in isolation. COLA increases can affect other parts of your financial picture, including taxes and eligibility for assistance programs. For some people, a modest COLA increase can unintentionally push income just above program thresholds. That's why reviewing eligibility after adjustments take effect can be important, especially for those relying on additional support. If you claimed benefits early and continued working, earnings limits also deserve attention. Exceeding those limits can cause temporary withholding of benefits. While withheld amounts are often credited back later, understanding the timing helps prevent unnecessary worry. One final check that's worth mentioning is your contact information. Social Security still communicates many important requests and notices by mail. If letters are sent to an outdated address and go unanswered, benefits can be delayed or temporarily stopped. Updating your mailing address and phone number only takes a few minutes, but it can prevent serious complications later. As we step back and look at the bigger picture, it's clear that Social Security and Medicare continue to evolve. Long-term projections, policy changes, and administrative rules all affect how benefits are delivered. While you can't control those broader decisions, you can control the accuracy of your information and how prepared you are going into the new year. That's really what these year-end checks are about, not paperwork, not fear, stability. So, before the year closes, it's worth taking a little time to review what's listed, what's deducted, and what assumptions the system is making about you. Small confirmations now can prevent months of stress later. If there's one takeaway from today, let it be this: Social Security works best when people stay engaged with their own records. You earned these benefits. Taking a few steps to protect them is part of that process. If there's a topic you'd like me to go deeper on, whether it's Medicare costs, COLA changes, or reporting rules, leave a comment and let me know. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss updates as new information comes out. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care, and I'll talk to you again soon.